There was a Dr. Stephen. He was on his way to a medical conference to receive a real prestigious award. On the way flying to the conference, a severe thunderstorm came, and the pilot had to make an emergency landing. The pilot landed in this town. Dr. Stevenson went to the front desk and asked the receptionist, say, "When's the next flight to this city?" She said, "It's about 10 hours from now, but you can rent a car and get there in 3." He rented a car because he really wanted to go to this conference. On the way driving there, another storm hit, and he lost his way and he hit the wrong exit. So he found himself in this remote town. He sees an old house and he's desperate. He's hungry. His cell phone is not charged. He knocks on the door and he asks the lady who answers. There was a man named Dr. Stevens. He was on his way to a medical conference to receive an award for a medical breakthrough he had. Well, on his way there, he was on a flight, and the flight came into a severe thunderstorm, and the pilot had to make an emergency landing. So the pilot landed the plane. So Dr. Stevenson, in panic, because he did not want to miss this conference because he really wanted to discuss his new breakthrough and receive the award. So he goes to the front desk and he asks the airline clerk, "Hey, when's the next flight to the city?" She said, "The next flight is not for 10 hours, but you can rent a car and drive. It's only 3 hours from here." So Dr. Stevenson opted to rent a car. So Dr. Stevenson goes, rents the car, and he begins his 3 hour journey to the city to go to this medical event where he's going to receive this prestigious award. But on the way to the medical event, he comes to another severe storm. So in this another storm, he's desperate now. His cell phone is on low charge. He's hungry. He has no food, and he needs to go and get some help. So he's in this remote town. He's driving, and he sees this kind of look like an abandoned house set off to the hill by itself, in desperate need of using a phone and getting some water and food. He knocks on the door and he asks to ask the residents for some help. So an old lady comes to the door and he says, "Hey, can I use your phone?" She said, "I don't have a phone, nor do I have electricity, but feel free to come in out this weather and I'll fix you a hot meal and use some tea or coffee and help you on your way." Dr. Stevenson in his panic state agrees. So he sits down and he begins to eat and drink some hot tea. As he's drinking a coffee, he watches the woman. She gets up from the table and she walks into a room with a crib. Dr. Stevenson watches her in this room with this crib, and he's like watching her pray. And she's praying continuously, different prayers. And he says, "She must need help." He says, "Well, I'll find a break in her next prayer and I'm going to ask her." So as she has the break in her prayer, she's praying by this crib, by the way. She's sitting by a crib and praying. So as he finds a break in her prayer, he says, "Ma'am, do you need help?" And she says, "Yes." And this crib is my grandson. He has a very rare form of cancer. And this is a guy named Dr. Stevenson who had a medical breakthrough who can help my grandson. And I've been praying, and God always answers my prayers. But for some reason, God has not answered this prayer. But I'm going to continue to pray that God sends Dr. Stevenson to help my grandson. Dr. Stevenson looks at her, and tears begin to well in his eyes. Dr. Stevenson says, "Ma'am, not only did God answer your prayers, but he sent Dr. Stevenson here in person. I'm Dr. Stevenson, and I came here because of a thunderstorm on my airplane in a severe thunderstorm while I was driving that I got lost. But I'm here to help your grandson." So the moral of the story is this: the effectual, fervent prayer of the righteous availeth much. Keep praying for what you need God to do in your life. You may not see it because we walk by faith and not by sight. But keep praying. God hears your prayers. And just like the old lady who prayed for Dr. Stevenson, God will answer your prayers. Have a blessed Sunday. Amen.